Hey everybody, this is Herschel from High School Top 200. This next preseason Top 50 is St. John's High School from Hamilton. St. John's has gone through a couple of years of building a rugby program that is actually really successful now. It's still on the rise. They had a really good year last year, and they made their way to the top 10 last year, finishing in the top 10 in the nation last year with such a talented squad, such a high ranking squad, just full of potential all over the field, which was great to see from a school like that. Growing up in Hamilton myself, I always knew St. John's High School as a basketball school that always used to play church colleges. So to see them at this point with rugby is really good for Hamilton itself. That means that you've got Hamilton Boys, St. Paul's, St. Peter's School in Cambridge, and then you've got St. John's. That's four really good schools, all in the top 50, and then two of them in the top 10 this year. And so that's a really good thing for Waikato, which is a kind of a small place, for Hamilton, which is kind of a small place. And so these guys have built a program with really good coaches. They got a really good coaching staff here. They got good programs set in place for the boys. They build a lot on these boys in terms of their character as well, and making sure that they have things around them to support these boys and make sure that they are looked after. A product of that is Siave Sete, who's like, if you were at the Blues under-18s game last year, the second game, you would know who Siave is. He scored 2 tries. He's this big 6'4", 6'5" kid who's really big, really fast, carries the ball well. He scored 2 tries as well, so that just adds to it because he's got really good timing to himself. For a guy who hasn't played a lot of rugby before coming to New Zealand, sort of rugby at a higher level, he has done really well, and he's a guy that I think that would make the New Zealand secondary schools this year. It would be massive to see him and Lester on the wings for New Zealand secondary schools, just to show how much size that we have in the wingers position. So he's a guy that I think will make a good push this year, and that he'll make a good player, even just in terms of his own school and being able to get them ahead in games. I think he'll be that go-to guy for them whenever they're in kind of trouble, and so look out for him a lot this year. BJ Lima, it will probably move into the centres. He played on the wing last year. He'll probably move into centres. Pretty much the same height as Siave, but not the same size body-wise. But he's got really good skills, really good footwork. I like that he can play outside of the man for being such a tall guy. And with tall guys, you've got guys with long arms, and so he's got that reach and that fence to get that separation from the runners. So I would look to him for sort of making a lot of breaks on the outside, and then seeing Siave sort of carry it on from there off the second phase. Anadu Rush is probably a kid that I think I would move in from a winger's position into a second 5. He's got a lot bigger this year, so I would use him just purely for crash ball. I like crash ball kind of guys. He's got good footwork as well, so with a league background, he can sort of step in and out, and then create the gaps, and then just sort of put his head down and go forward. He's also good enough that once he breaks that first line of defense, he's got the ability to look off for a good pass and look for oncoming runners and things like that. And so I'd like to see him sort of in that kind of role. George Fino is a young kid who I would like to see at fullback. I think with a guy like him and with a winger like Siave, I think a guy with ball skills like George will probably be best out there. Keaton Niels is probably going to be the guy that will control everything. He's a really good halfback. He's a young year 13, so we could see him again next year. He's a really sharp player, and I think that he's going to be sort of a go-to guy for these fellas. And decision making and things like that. So he'll probably be a guy that I would probably look at to throughout the game. That when he switches momentum, he's the one that's calling it to go either way. Haaland, Afatu is probably as a guy on the rise. Like I really liked him. He's going to be the first five. He's going to have to learn a lot this year. I hope he really learns a lot in these first games up, these preseason games against the harder teams like Hamilton Boys and Rotorua or Tauranga, like depending on who they play with in these Chief Cup games. And so I hopefully he learns a lot from those kind of games, because he's a really talented, skillful first five, and I think that he could be something special with this year going so well. If this year goes so well for him, I think we'll see him in a bigger and better role next year as a first five, and you know, maybe we could see him in some of these rep teams. But him and Keaton's really got to work with him. Make sure he stays on task. Make sure he doesn't go off on too many random tangents of sort of freestyle rugby, and he keeps to the game plan that they have set. Justice Hall is going to be a key player. He's also a young year 13, like Keaton, and so he's going to. And he was in the first 15 last year, playing as a blindside. But for me, his role and his best position should be at hooker. So if he's there with JT, who'll be their prop, Tauhelu is those two will probably be in that front row. Justice will serve better as a hooker, just because of his size, his explosiveness with the ball. Even in tackle situations, he's just so hard and just real tough when it comes to the tackle ball. And so I think he would be better there. And it adds also another guy with a lot of range on the field and mobility to also make tackles from the tight five position in the tight games instead of being out there in the open field kind of thing. And so I would look to him to be sort of one of those guys to look forward to for leadership up front. He could come back again next year. Whether he does or he doesn't, I'm not too sure. But you know, him and Keaton will probably have a really good shot at a really good position next year in terms of gunning for New Zealand secondary schools. Sam Poe is a lock that I really like. Really tall guy. Works hard. I really liked his work ethic in the games that I saw of him last year. And he'll be their main guy probably at the front, jumping at number one. And so I look to him as well. Really tall fellow and does a lot of work. Hopefully, he puts on a lot of weight over this over the summer. It would really go really well with him and his ability to change the game at lock as well. So look for these kind of guys. I still think that they have question marks in their 6, 7, and 8. They do have some young fellas coming through and some guys that are coming up, and so just have to wait and see. Kelly Rush, I heard had an injury and is out for the season, which sucks. I mean, he's such a good player, but we'll just see what happens with him. That's my review of St. John's. Peace.